again, this is Philip Steiger at thebest3d.com, and I'd like to give you a quick introduction to one of the new features currently under development for version 9 of PDE Pro, Howler or Arduous Edition. This one is called PuppyRay. PuppyRay is a ray tracer for Dogwaffle, and as you can see in this image, it's particularly aiming for landscape rendering. And a couple of things that you can see here, perhaps it's tiling and replicating the data, not really easily recognized, but it helps in making it a seemingly endless horizon. You can tile it as many times as you want, as long as you have memory for it, and a powerful system. So I want to show you some examples of things you can do with it. Here's an image that was done with the rings, the Z rings that we have in the render menu, and fairly easily you can go and create, let's say, something like this image here. All right, and we are now inside the rings here. We have done some rendering with global illumination, with some sky in the on the sky side, and then here's another example with replicating it more often, so you can see it go towards the horizon. Here's one without too much replication, but also without much of the fog. Actually, it is replicating, but just very far away. And then there's, I think we may have disabled the global illumination. I don't remember exactly, but we have a little bit more of a presence of a light source here. So there's also a light source you can place somewhere over the scene, and perhaps give it some specular highlight and do a variety of other things with that. So I'm not going to show you today how to do this kind of thing. This is ultimately what PuppyRay is really meant to do, but you can also explore its base functionalities in a couple of other ways. So let's get started and simply start here from the filter menu and see if we can render one of those Z rings. There they are. You could start with a grid. There's a couple of other Mandelbrots, gems, lots of different shapes to generate with that. Let's start with the Z rings, and maybe we'll make them a little bit wider or a little bit more narrow. There's a couple of other displacements you could add to that. And let's say we want to also, okay that, and let's say we want to also make it tileable, so basically seamless. So we go to the image menu and make this seamless. And you can just okay that, and replace the buffer. So now we have sort of a seamless texture. Let's go copy that over here, grab a image copy of that, so we have a safe sort of a backup in case we need to get back to that. And so what else do we need? We need a sky if we want the skylight to act. And in this current beta version, actually it's not even beta yet, of 9, it's still in alpha as of this late Memorial Day weekend. What we'll do is we'll generate a sky right over here from the render menu, and let's give it perhaps a little bit different scale. Let's use a different fog color. Let's make it, I don't know, kind of a reddish, perhaps sunset lookish. And I don't know what else we might change to the zoom factor. In a way, it doesn't matter, because one thing we'll do is we'll also change. Let's see, let's use this. We'll make it kind of a dome picture, so a sky dome. And for that, what we could do is, it doesn't have to be perfect. We can just make it approximate. Let's do a vertical mirror, and so we have that. And then let's do also a horizontal mirror, so sideways. So the upper right quadrant is the one that's being mirrored, and we'll just use that as our sky dome. I know it's not perfect, but it'll be good enough just to see something up in the sky. Now, the place we put this in order to use this in PuppyRay is we need this as a custom brush. So that's one of the resources that the ray tracer can use. It will be able to use the image in the main buffer as an elevation map, but I'm also going to store this one here in case we want to get back to that. And most importantly, I'm going to grab it as a custom brush. So Control B will do that, and I can store that onto the brush menu to have a stored copy of that's in the brush. So this one is actually what's going to be used for the sky dome. The next thing we'll do is we'll go back to this, put that into the elevation map. And we didn't want it tiled, so we should probably disable the tiling here, clear the tiling or the mirroring, and put that in without the mirroring enforced on top. Alright, so now one more thing we might want to do is actually have coloring across this. So for that we could use a totally different image map, or we could do one that's related to that, maybe somehow combining the two. For instance, let's say we want to have, let's go to the color grade and the fill settings. There you go. And you see the brush is currently being tiled here. Let's go to the patterns and select a different one. Let's do the bricks, why not? So we have the bricks, and the bricks are being tiled here. And what I'm going to do is do a pattern fill of this brick pattern and just fill that all over. So that will be under the image, fill with the Q shortcut if you want. Now I want to combine it with what's already there, so I'm going to undo that and really change the mode so that the fill tool, where is it? You could set the mode here to multiply, right? So when you then use the Q shortcut, it will multiply the brick to the existing image. And then that way we still keep that as well a little bit there. You could do this in a couple of other ways too. You could perhaps keep it in replace mode and then do the interactive undo here, the fade last action. So a couple of ways. Now I'm going to use this one as my color map, whereas I'm going to use the original gray, this one here, as my elevation map. So let's grab a snapshot of that here. So we have the color map here, and we need to copy that into the swap buffer. That's the third resource. So there are 3 resources that PuppyRay currently uses. We'll copy that into the swap buffer. We can see it right here in the swap buffer now. We can put this one in the main buffer. So it's in the main buffer here. And if we combine them together, we can see them. But that's not what we want to do. We want to now go into the PuppyRay. Now, right now this version is not quite accessible yet, so I'm going to use a secret handshake here to launch experimental features, and I'm going to use that to enable to launch PuppyRay. So PuppyRay is over here. So again, this is an alpha, an early version, still under development, and there might be little glitches here or there, but it'll be a good idea of perhaps give you an idea of what's to come. Namely the ability to change the quality in your preview even, and there's also more options here, but let's focus first on the ones we have here. So if we look at changing, for instance, moving the camera around, you can see that in the preview right there, and there are some regions where we can go a little bit closer to the light source, the darker area, the brighter area. So you're right in the bright zone here or far away. You can also change the angular, the camera information, move up or down. You see the sky dome here being replicated. You can see a little bit of fog. You can also, let's see, move up over this, and so you see the fog developing by the end there where the tiling is ending. So the terrain is basically tiled endlessly, but only 2 or 3 of them are being tiled and shown. So whenever we move forward into it, it's going to tile another level as needed. And if you want, you can say click on more here and say you want more tiles. So the world size over here, that's that parameter that indicates how big the world is and how many tiles we want there. So if let's say if we put it to 9, you see that it goes much further. And then you can also perhaps zoom into that. If you give it like 2, it's more of a wide angle. 1 is a very wide angle. So let's give it 6 or 7, and you start looking up close here, zooming into that. So there's a lot of fine-tuning that you can do here to adjust your view a little bit. This is still a very fast preview, and then if you want to at better quality, you can do that. And let's say now you want to see a render on that. This is the high quality render. Let's click on Ray Trace, and there it goes. So now it's using all these resources, the image in the custom brush, the image in the swap buffer for coloring, and the image in the main buffer to generate this scene. And so that's that. Now there's a couple of other things you might want to enable, such as the global illumination, and that will of course make it a little bit brighter. You can also move the position of the light source. So you can move it towards the back there where the horizon might be. Maybe move it a little bit to the left or to the right as well. And also move it up and down with the Z value. So that interface here, which we have seen also in 3D Designer, you can use that there too. And maybe you want a little bit more of the global illumination. So you could go here with the amount of global illumination, or maybe a little bit less, so 0.4, so it's not that dominant. Let's go back on the zoom a little bit with 5. There you go, and let's go and change the color of the light. You can see that you can change the colors here, the light color, the shade. If you want the shadows not to be too dark, I would say perhaps give it some sort of a dark gray or a mid gray. And let's do a render on that. Now, the more you enable features, the longer you render. It depends on, of course, also on the speed of your system and how many cores there are. If you look at activity right now on the system, on the performance, you can see that it's multi-threaded, and all of the cores are very busy contributing to the render of that puppy ray scene. So this is a great way to accelerate that, of course, and to get to a nice rendered scene there in next to no time. So let's have a quick look. There it is, the first one. Now there's a little bit too much brightness here for the light, so maybe what we'll do is we'll reduce that a little bit. Let's make it not quite that bright, and a little bit more of a reddish tint. There you go. So there you go. Maybe even bring it up a little bit higher one more time. And maybe we would need a little bit more of the specular highlight. Now you see some parameters here in the expanded view for the light intensity. So if you want the light not to be that intense, you can reduce it, make it 1,000 units. And then there's also the position. That, of course, is changed up here and updated there too. But most importantly, you can also change the specular intensity and the hardness of the specularity. So if you bring that down, let's say to 6 or so, you'll start seeing specular highlights a little bit everywhere. And of course, if you make it brighter on that, you'll get very bright specular highlights. Maybe not what we need, so let's keep it down in the 50s range, but just make it, reduce the hardness so that it's showing the specular highlight a little bit more. Let's bring this to a nice combination there. And let's see, what else do we have? We have some extra parameters for trace shadow. Now, many of these parameters are set or changed as you change the preview, right? If you go to fast previews, you see anti-aliasing is disabled. If you go to maybe medium quality, it is enabled, and then you see the GI, global illumination samples, global illumination enabled, and so on. And then final render, it's just going to get better and better. There is also a render called hours would seem like days, and that is indeed a very time-consuming render. So I'm not going to go there right now. For this demo, let's go do this final render and click that. All right, so there's a couple of parameters to explore, but I think for this first quick intro, that will be just fine. So this final render, of course, again, it's probably going to take a minute or so to. This is still a very early alpha, and we've done some speed improvements, but you never know, it might benefit from some additional. At some point, what you do is you get your final render, your final image, and then you move on to the next step, which is to perhaps add some post work, some lens flares, some clouds, do some compositing. Dogwaffle is still, after all, a paint program. So this ray trace puppy ray is becoming an addition to Dogwaffle that you will be seeing in version 9, and you can hopefully see here how there's a lot of different ways to imagine using that to create some great additional scenery and elements for your graphic art. So thanks for watching, and I'll finish this up here. I'll let it go to the end and show you 2 or 3 more examples.